Hey everyone, welcome to our introduction episode to our World's Fairs series. I'm super excited to have you all here and really excited to have Kat here as well as we chat about everything to do with the World's Fairs of the past and even the future. Yes, we are a history podcast, but this is a topic that just keeps on going. It would be like doing a series on every Olympics and not talking about the future of the Olympics.
That's true. That would be a little bit weird, like stopping at like 2010 and being like, all right, that's the history of Olympics. It's like, no, we're still having them though.
Exactly, I'm like, and they're going to continue going.
Yeah.
Just possibly a little bit differently, because I know they're looking at doing like the Olympics. They're looking at possibly having like one or two countries per like North America per, and then like Europe, and then like the Asias or something like, and then just running them like through that same like the same cities, so that it's not as much of like a thing for.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's not as much of a hullabaloo for the random cities that are chosen every year. Okay.
Yeah. Which it's like, then are you going to, is it going to be that every Olympics, that all of the proceeds are going to just that one city? Or are you then going to make it that all the proceeds are going to go worldwide?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
it should then be that the proceeds go worldwide all the time.
Yeah.
But today we're going to introduce you all to the idea of the World's Fair and how we're going to kind of structure this little series. So, mainly because the World's Fair has constantly changed, and honestly, there are hundreds of them that we could talk about if we don't structure this well. Therefore, for the sake of timing and my brain power, we will only be talking about the 35 expos that are actually recognized by the Bureau International des Expositions, plus one specialized expo that is dear to my heart because it has happened here in my home province, which we will have a special guest for that episode because why not?
Yay.
Plus, I'd also hear about it all if I didn't invite them for this one. So let's get into a little bit of history. First off, a World's Fair is basically a nation's way of showing off and inviting other countries to come see their newest innovations and achievements.
Mm-hmm.
So most World's Fairs or World Expos last 3 to 6 months, but some lasted a full year or 2 years, depending.
Holy, they lasted for so much longer than I thought they did. I thought it was like a month or two tops.
Yeah, no. Well, New York was the example of that in 1964 and 1965, but we will talk about them later because they weren't even a legit World's Fair / Expo.
They were just like, we're doing it on our own, whether you say we can or not.
Yeah. So I'm also going to be covering them because this is like, they're going to be their own episode, because even though they're not legitimately recognized as a fair, it's actually a major cultural icon, which created a pile of major icons that we know of, that are still going and that we know of today.
Cool.
So the very, very first World Fair was in Prague in 1791.
1791. Holy,
Correct.
We've been at this for a while.
It was held in Bohemia, which is now modern-day Czech Republic, and it was put on for the coronation of Leopold II. So the fair mainly celebrated how sophisticated the Czechs were with their manufacturing methods of the time. This is also the event that Mozart wrote his very last opera for, which was called La Clemencia di Tito.
We talked about Mozart a while ago.
Yes, we did, I think. So this actually would be the first of Mozart's operas to reach London in its entirety. The rest of his operas before this one only reached London in segments. So the next World's Fair would take a lengthy 7 years to be held, which at this point in World's Fair time frame is an eternity.
Yeah.
It would be held in Paris, as would the next 7 expositions until 1829, when the USA gets a hold of the trend.
Naturally.
Let's just
if there's anything the USA really wants to put their money and time and dedication to, it showing off all the accomplishments of the USA.
Right? Let's just say France actually really, really, really loves their expos, and it's going to become even more evident shortly.
This is fair. France has also been known for showing off their stuff pretty well.
Yeah. So the 1829 fair in the USA is held in New York, and it's called the American Institute Fair.
Okay.
This fair would end up being held yearly until 1897 and boast encouragement for the development of American agriculture, commerce, manufacturing, and arts.
Okay, cool.
It's considered the first World's Fair of America, but it only garners about 30,000 attendees, which is nothing compared to the usual attendance of world fairs to come.
Oof.
Yeah, the Americans don't get enough compared to everybody else, but I mean, they're kind of new at this point, so.
That does make me curious about how they fared compared to the Chicago World Fair, though.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
Get into that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, through the 1830s and 1840s, Turin and Paris would then take turns holding their expos, trying to one-up each other through the years, until more cities try to put their hats into the ring.
Naturally.
One such city would then garner the official title of First World's Fair by the Bureau International des Expositions, London, England.
Okay.
So London's first World's Fair was technically in 1849 with their first exposition of British manufacturers.
Yeah.
I believe, though, that because they focused on British manufacturers and not a world focus, that this particular fair was officially out of the running for being deemed a proper World's Fair. So it was actually held in the same year as Birmingham held an exhibition of industrial arts and manufacturers, which garnered over 100,000 attendees, of whom included Charles Darwin and Prince Albert.
Wow.
Prince Albert would then go on to help bankroll the next World's Fair, which did become extremely famous.
Cool.
A vendor of note at this industrial arts exhibition would be the Cadbury Brothers, showing off their chocolates, including a vanilla eating chocolate, which was a completely brand new flavor at the time.
Amazing.
In fact, their chocolates were actually being sold as homeopathic, which I am completely here for.
I'm sorry, how were they supposed to be homeopathic?
Well, I mean, like, at least, like, for, like, dark chocolate now is considered to be a health food,
Yeah.
right?
Sure,
So,
dark chocolate.
so cocoa bean and stuff like that is actually considered homeopathic. So depending on what level of cocoa it is, it actually can be considered homeopathic.
Okay, so it's like a vanilla-flavored dark chocolate.
Well, I don't know exactly what
the
the vanilla eating chocolate was considered, if it was considered homeopathic, but most of their chocolates were considered homeopathic.
Gotcha, okay. Interesting.
It's just that the vanilla eating chocolate was like the newest thing, right?
The newest of their newest production.
Yeah.
Interesting, okay.
With world fairs becoming the it thing, every country and every city wanted one.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have one.
They just did it themselves. They were like, all right, regulations be damned. I'm just gonna do our thing over here.
Pretty much every single year, multiple places would rush to be the first to declare a World's Fair. And so different years, you'd have multiple World's Fairs happening.
Oh my god.
Trying to basically compete with each other to be who's gonna get the most people to come to our World's Fair.
Oh my god, that's so chaotic.
In the later 1800s to the early 1900s, the lists are full of World's Fairs as everyone clamored to host.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of thousands would flock to whomever was hosting to get a glimpse of whatever extravagant thing was being built to upstage the last person. So, London had their Crystal Palace, Paris had their Eiffel Tower, Chicago built the Ferris wheel. You had statues made of chocolate, giant towers of light bulbs. Huge cities were built to be taken down just as soon as the fair was completed. Many sports centers that we use today, where we look at them and go, this doesn't seem practical, were literally built for World's Fairs and were not built to be practical, but built to wow.
Oh my goodness.
And then they're like, we don't have anything else to do with this, so let's just put a baseball field in here.
Oh my goodness, that kind of explains a lot.
So yeah, we're gonna learn about some of those as we get to each of those fairs. So in 1928, the French basically said, enough is enough. We are the best at world fairs, and all of these random fairs need to stop. Which, really, they weren't wrong.
They're kind of right. I kind of, I support it.
So there did need to be a better structure to world fairs. Therefore, the Bureau International des Expositions was founded in Paris on the 22nd of November on two main goals. Number one was to oversee a calendar, bidding, selection, and organization process of world fairs and expos. And number two was to establish a framework for organizers and participants to work under and together so that things would run smoothly and under the best conditions. And apparently, an unofficial number three was to go back in history and deem what historically is considered an official World Fair or Expo.
Okay. So then they went back through time and were like, okay, these fairs checked these boxes, those ones didn't, so these ones are official and those ones don't count.
Correct.
And it's the French that are doing this?
The French plus like a pile of other countries all got so there's like it's like a whole, it's almost like the UN but of world fairs.
World fairs. Okay.
Yeah, but it's mainly the French that run it.
I feel like it could be a little bit rigged as far as them declaring.
Yeah,
like
it's the French who basically run it though.
Yeah.
But they did put London and not France as the first World's Fair, so.
Okay. Points for honesty.
I mean.
Yeah.
So the BIE decided to put these events under two categories. Mm-hmm. So the category that we're going to focus on is the registered expositions or world expos.
Okay.
So we call them world fairs because we're in North America, which is why I kind of keep going back and forth between world fair and expo. It literally actually all really depends on the organizer and whomever named the event as to if it's a fair or an expo.
Gotcha, okay.
It seems like after the BIE was formed, most events became expos to fit the organization, no matter where in the world that they were held. But the past events were usually called world fairs, but then sometimes expos. So kind of bear with us as it will kind of change depending on the event.
Yeah, it kind of flips back and forth.
The other category, for those of you who are curious about it, are recognized expositions or specialized expositions. So basically, if you aren't big enough or special enough to be a World Expo, but you're enough to be still recognized, you're a specialized exposition.
Gotcha. Okay, so that would that be like New York then was a specialized exposition?
It's not anything according to the BIE.
Oh, they don't. They're not even.
It's not even on their list at all. Yeah, it's not on their list at all.
You're not even that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah,
that's rough, buddy.
Expo 86 in Vancouver, though, is a recognized exposition.
Oh, okay.
So we are going to be talking about that one because it's our expo.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about it.
That's near and dear.
Yeah.
That's near and dear to us.
Exactly. And it's also kind of cool to see the difference between a World Expo and a recognized expo, right? So I'm fair. Let's just do the expo that's actually kind of close to our hearts here.
Yeah, sure.
So a new timeline for these expos are kind of scheduled. So it's kind of like the Olympics in a way. You know how the Olympics is every 4 years, and then you kind of go every 2 years is a winter and then a summer. Mm-hmm. A World Expo is now supposed to happen every 5 years and last for 6 months, while specialized expos will happen in between for about 3 months.
Okay.
It can be one specialized expo or many specialized expos, though, in between your World Expos.
Gotcha, okay.
But a World Expo doesn't actually have to happen every 5 years, it seems, because there is an example where there were 11 specialized expos in between the 1970 World Expo in Osaka, Japan, and the next World Expo, which was in Seville, Spain in 1992.
Okay. That's a bit of a gap.
I was trying to find as to why there was such a big gap, but I couldn't actually see any exact reasons, and I didn't want to go and look at world history and speculate as to why there was such a big reason, because I'm you never know. Right? We have a bit of a gap recently because of COVID, but that's an actual there's a reason and it's actually put down. There is no expo. There was a spot prepared, but it was canceled because of COVID.
Yeah, whereas with this one, it's entirely possible that there just wasn't a spot, like, prepared or, like,
yeah,
in time or something.
Exactly. So many people don't realize that we still have World Expos to this day. We always think of them as something from the past, especially because they aren't usually actually held on American soil anymore. The last World Expo to be held here was literally Expo 86 as a specialized expo, or Expo 67 in Montreal as a World Expo.
Okay.
So Canada basically apparently shot the bed somehow.
We were like, yeah, okay, we did our time. We're going to let it be now. We have enough other stuff going on.
The last World Expo was in 2020 in Dubai, with 24.1 million people attending over the 6 months.
Okay.
The largest ever attendance for a World Expo goes to Shanghai in 2010 with over 73 million visitors.
Whew, you know what? That kind of checks out for me. I kind of get that.
Right? It isn't cheap though to run an expo. That Shanghai Expo cost over $5,800 million in USD if you count the infrastructure that they built for the fair.
Holy shit. That's a good chunk of change. I mean, I'm glad they had such a huge attendance then. I'm sure that helped make some of that back. I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't like looked into like as to like
if they made
money or if they lost money.
That's a crazy amount of money.
Yes, 192 countries attended it, but I'm like, that's a lot of money to be spending in today's economy. I'm like, yes, China's a fairly rich country, but I'm like,
yeah,
still,
yeah, totally. That's
for the world economy. That's a lot of money to be spending.
Yeah.
We do have an expo coming up in 2025, and I believe it is in Japan as well.
Okay, cool.
But apparently there's not a lot of like advertisement about it in Japan. Like that people were like, I heard somebody else from like another podcast saying that they'd recently they hadn't even like seen any advertisement about the World Fair being going, and I'm like, interesting. You'd think that you'd be advertising it so that people would be like, oh hey, we should book tickets to come for 2025.
Well, yeah, right. Like yeah, you would think so, especially if the goal is to like get people from all over the world to come check this thing out. You'd think you would want to put out advertisements all over the world when and where it's happening.
Exactly. Well, and especially because like, so now that we have a basic understanding of what the World's Fair is and like the sort of history of it, like I think we're ready to kind of jump into the first World Fair, but most historians have separated the fairs into 3 segments of history, and we're going to be going in that chronological order. Because we have the industrial era, which is 1851 to 1938. Then we have the cultural era, which is 1939 to 1987. And then the nation branding era, which takes us from 1988 to the present day. So you'd want people to, like, you'd want to be advertising it, and you'd want people from all over the world to be coming, because we're in that nation branding era, which means that a lot of these countries that are having people come are trying to show that, hey, we are a nation that is up and coming, and we are a great nation, and you want to come visit us.
Yeah, it's like
that's the whole point of your expo.
Country, yeah.
Like,
yeah, so yeah, I don't know, because that's 2025, so they do still have
it's next year.
Yeah, next year.
Yeah, so they have like a year to be, because people need to make the travel arrangements soonish.
I guess that's fair.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Like, most of these expos usually happen in, like, the summertime.
Yeah, okay, so, like, a year and a half.
Yeah, so, like, you're going to be wanting to...
recording, I should say, at the time of recording, it's, like, a year and a half.
Yeah, so, like, you're going to want to make your...
don't know when this is coming out.
Make your travel arrangements, right?
Yeah, if you're planning on going to the World Fair in Japan, you should probably do that soon.
Yeah. Especially if you're coming, and because you're going to need to book your vacation time. You're going to need to figure out when you want to go. Like, you need to know your dates.
It's fair.
But yeah, so with all of this said, next week, come and join us in London, England for the Great Exhibition of 1851. You're going to want to bring your sunscreen and a fan, as things are going to get super nice and warm and toasty inside of the Crystal Palace.
God, okay. I'm a little bit afraid for that.
You should
That
be.
that sounds a little bit ominous. I don't know.
It's going to be like Frosty the Snowman.
Okay. I have questions. Oh no. Wait, I get it. I have questions. I'm concerned. Okay.
So we'll see you guys there on the weird side of history.
Bye.